Welcome to the show where we discuss the first Marvel Netflix series and discern the truth about why this show stands above the rest. The elements of quality storytelling that other shows are blind to.
But not this
show. Join us as we start Discerning Daredevil, and tonight we are covering the penultimate episode of not just season 3, but of the entire show. One last shot. I am not throwing away my shot.
Take your shot.
All right, now I just want to see, like, again, if any Hamilton parody could be implied to any fictional character, it would be Bullseye and the Hamilton song "I Am Not Throwing Away My Shot." You're not even going to acknowledge that, are you?
Nope.
All right, fair enough. Dragon, let's get right into it. Let's start things off with the plot. I am not throwing away my plot.
All right. Plot goes a little something like this. So Nelson and Murdoch work to get Nadeem to testify against Fisk ASAP with the help of DA Tower. Vanessa returns. Hooray! Vanessa returns, but all is not well in Fisk's paradise. Some trouble in Fisk's paradise.
Casa de Fritz, or Casa de Fisk.
Yes, Casa de Fisk. Let's see, Matt fights off Fisk's forces to get Nadeem to the courthouse, but at the end of the day, all is for naught. Dex tries to get on Fisk and Vanessa's good side. Let's see, Vanessa ends up taking a very active role in Kingpin's day-to-day operations, which leads to, sadly, Agent Nadeem's death. And that's the episode.
Okay, so let's get to how we got there. Let's talk through the arcs.
Let's start with our titular character. Let's start with Blind Matt Murdoch.
You just hand someone a business card. Hello, I'm Blind Matt Murdoch. It's a very professional laminated business card.
Well, this episode we do actually get Blind Matt Murdoch, so it's actually relevant for a change. Bear in mind, every episode we kind of get Blind Matt Murdoch. This is where we get, like, Blind Matt Murdoch doing stuff.
Right.
Okay, in all seriousness, though, let's talk about what happens with Matt this episode. Matt, if you remember last episode, Matt was kind of swayed to kind of the side of the Angels for a change here. This really tumultuous season for him, where he's kind of weighing, should I go the lethal option in handling our Kingpin problem? And this episode, I think, on the whole, he's cautiously optimistic. Would you agree?
Honestly, I would say more than cautiously. Like, as the ducks are kind of getting in a row, he sort of lets his guard down, and that's his air.
Yeah, like he's saying, "Okay, Foggy, don't say it, because you're gonna jinx it." But it's yeah, he's very much he's given the legal approach his all with this one last shot. He's giving him. He's not just like okay, I know this is gonna fail. Like, he may have thought that at the beginning, but yes, he's actually kind of being swayed to maybe. I mean, he is getting what he wants, because what Matt wants, as he's kind of discovered through the season, he wants to get back to the season 1 status quo. He wants to let his friends in. He wants to become the lawyer that his father wanted him to be, and he's even if it's the whole dual identity of it all, he wants to get back to the way things were. The only question is there a peaceful way of getting there? And so far, the peaceful approach, the approach sticking to the legal guns that honors what his father wanted for him, it's all working.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up Murdoch for a change. Until it also comes up Murdoch and that things go horribly wrong.
Oh, yeah. And so in that regard, he just kind of does a 180 into, like, he went from, like, having the most faith in the system in the entire season to, like, just instantly, like, it's just a high of high to a low of low, Dragon. It's such a whiplash for him.
Let me tell you something I really love in this episode, Tiki. I love with both Matt and Fisk's arc here. I love that Matt...
Mickey Rourke pops up. Did somebody say whiplash? Surprise cameo!
Well, there are cars around. There are a lot of cars in this episode, so it is possible. No, in all seriousness. Remember, Whiplash blown up the environment. Dude.
And then J.K. Simmons is just like, Daredevil, your fighting's not my tempo.
Anyway.
All right.
No, and in all seriousness, I love that. I love that just as Matt's faith is essentially fully restored in the system, and Matt's life is restored. It's like, hey, everything's going great now. The minute he kind of casts things aside, he has that kind of moment, like, don't say it, Foggy. He has a big smile on his face, and everything's going great. Fisk wins, and Fisk ends up winning, and he basically ruins Matt's hope for a life. And I just love like the parallel of the power balance here. Think about it. This episode, Fisk is facing a little bit of trouble this episode, while Matt Murdock's life is going on the upswing. And of course, we then switch it. It's almost like the Bates Motel kind of balance of happiness. It's like two characters can't be happy at the same time. And these two characters things can't be going gangbusters for them at the same time. Of course, being the hero and the villain, it kind of goes without saying. But it's like, of course, if things are going great for Matt, things aren't going so great for Fisk, and we flip that, and it's so sad. One could say you feel bad for him. And of course, Fisk, he perverts the system and kind of takes a life that Matt swore to protect. And it's not just like any life. It's the fact that Matt, he gave his all, and he really in trusting in the system and trusting in. I can protect Nadeem. I swore to protect him. I swore he could trust me. I showed him my identity. There's no more trust I could put in this. I could establish with this man, and it was all for naught. And basically, now he's kind of going down the Daredevil path. Basically, Daredevil's fire has been relit. I mean, just like less Daredevil, more kind of like going back to the vigilante tactics of, okay, I'm skewing more towards the darker side. The devil, the Murdoch's having the devil in him side of things here. I gotta, I'm going to, he's very focused. He's very focused and in control of this very fatal mission that he's going. It's kind of this last fatal mission that he's going. It's kind of, we saw the last shot of the lawyers. Now we're going to the last shot of Daredevil going into the next episode. So that's kind of Matt's arc in a nutshell. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure. I think you hit it right over the head. I think you cracked that nut, Dragon. You cracked it wide open. You nutcracker, you.
Right. Okay.
Okay. All right. So let's see. Let's move on to Fisk. Yes,
I love this arc so much.
Trouble in Paradise. Trouble in Paradise. Ooh, boy.
Sounds, at the end of the day, it just sounds so simple. Fisk is having relationship issues.
It's like a sitcom. It's like a fucking sitcom, but it's played so dramatically.
Because you know how in the bag I am for the relationship between Fisk and Vanessa. You know how invested. If anything else, if there were a spin-off of just the Fisk, I hate soap operas. If there were a soap opera about Fisk and Vanessa's relationship, I would watch that religiously.
Oh my god, yes, please. Oh my god, give me like the shitty lighting and everything.
That's the thing. If it were these two, I would look past it because I hate soap operas so much.
Oh my god, yes, I am so down for that, Dragon.
That's the thing.
I would do a pitch for that, sir. But anyways.
Yes. Anyway, regardless. But no, seriously, I mean,
we could go down some crazy routes with that one.
With quite possibly the most compelling relationship in the entire MCU, Fisk and Vanessa. I'd wager to say at least one of the most compelling relationships. For me personally, probably might be the most compelling. But
they're on the Mount Rushmore, to be sure.
They are. I mean, there's that. There's Cap and Peggy Carter. I'm sure there's there's a great slathering there.
Tony Pepper.
I know that's on there. That's what I'm saying. Like those would probably be. I'm trying to think who the fourth head would be. Like what the fourth pairing. I mean, maybe Star-Lord Gamora, but I'm trying to think if there's anyone better. But
I'd say it's maybe either Star-Lord Gamora or arguably Peter MJ. But that's kind of like still okay. I'll give you this. All right. Peter and MJ are up there, but they're still under construction.
Not bad.
All right.
Anyway. I mean, there's also like if you want to go for like Matt or Karen. I mean, there's that too, But anyway.
Yeah, man. Just
or fine, Matt and Elektra if you want to go the fun route.
Well, yeah, but still, I
got it. You're right.
Out of all the Marvel Netflix stuff, to be sure, definitively,
you raise
Fisk and Vanessa are
fair point. Anyway, sorry, getting back on point here. So That's the thing. So I mean, ever since season one, I was enamored with their dynamic, and this episode, of course, I love how long we waited and how well earned it is. Vanessa's return, because I mean, going into the season, like I mean, Vanessa, surely she has to come back, but you're so invested in the season, like I know Vanessa's coming back, but you know what? Even if she didn't come back, and they kind of like, before we knew what was the series' fate, of course, before we knew what was going to happen, the season's like, you know what? I'm so invested in it. Even if Vanessa doesn't come back, I mean, it's like it's kind of the promise that's going to be kept, but you want her to come back, and she came back. And it led to a very interesting story. So anyway, so back to Fisk. Fisk, this episode, at the start of this episode, Fisk achieves all of his goals for the season, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
He's reunited with Vanessa. He has the view. His promise in season 2 is that he wants to view New York, the city that Hell's Kitchen, the city that he tried to save, and just look down upon it with the woman who I love, with everything that I am. That whole thing. Look down with her, basically having all the power and having Vanessa and looking down with basically a view and Vanessa and all the power, which he gets in this episode. And she comes back, and as I mentioned, there's kind of that power, kind of parallel with he and Matt, where Matt has a lot of hope this episode, and Fisk has issues with Vanessa. And what we kind of flirted with last episode with Fisk's arc there is that with the big rabbit and snowstorm scene last episode, is that Fisk kind of gets. He's kind of, in a sense, looking back again, bear in mind, we're going on in this season with a rewatch. It's like the first rewatch really gone in this season with. If you really look at kind of how the pieces, how the dominoes kind of stacked together here, it's that this kind of is kind of slowly prepared for the return of Vanessa last episode with the painting.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You
have an expectation, like Wilson Fisk has an idea of like, Vanessa would want you to have the painting, but here he kind of gets checked on things where maybe that's not the case. Maybe she would have wanted the painting, Maybe you put Vanessa on a pedestal. Maybe, again, you've idolized her too much to the point where you've kind of lost touch on what she wants. He's kind of, I love this, like Fisk hasn't, in a negative way, objectified her. He's just kind of put her on a pedestal out of love, or he hasn't quite seen that, I mean, my whole
fatal flaw in my dating life, Dragon. My fatal flaw. You're like cutting close to the vest here.
But so, at the beginning, it's like he's not a bad guy for doing this, though. You understand, it's a relatable thing,
It's a very relatable thing. It's a terribly relatable thing, and that's what makes it scary.
And then that's the thing, that where Fisk, is the point where, again, he's shaped so much of his life and his aspirations. He's become the kingpin because of Vanessa and all of his actions in season 2. Basically, everything that he's done in this season, all the manipulations, everything has been to be reunited with Vanessa. Everything. And to find out that, well, I have Vanessa back, but she's not happy to be with me. Why is that? And I just thought, again, it's such a brilliant move. It really is. He kind of has... again, he's very open. I love how open and receptive he is and how he continues to be. Because, again, it's such an open relationship where, again, he's absolutely honest with her. And he confronts her like, Vanessa, what can I do? I'll do anything. And, he's, in a sense, like Matt, very fascinating. Like Matt, they both want to recover their status quo. They both want to rebuild status quo. They both want to get back to the way things were in season 1. It's so fascinating, too, where, and like Matt's story, both of these, in order to get back to the status quo, both require a major change in their tactics. In Matt's case, he's contemplating, I have to kill the Kingpin to regain my status quo. Otherwise, you have what happens in this episode, but going to the next episode, I might have to kill the Kingpin to get my status quo back. And Fisk, on the other hand, is like, I want Vanessa in my life, but to have her in my life, she has to be fully complicit. Because we have this wonderful thing where Vanessa, she feels lonely even when she's around him because, again, she's even with the man that she loves, they're oceans apart because he will keep her separate from that world. Again, it doubles back to Wilson Fisk's fatal flaw in season 1, where, again, out of love, out of emotion, he wants to keep Vanessa separate from his life, where he'll kill a man with a car door for interrupting his date. As you do.
As you do, of course. Of course.
Yeah, it happens. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you overtip. Sometimes you take the guy's head off. It happens.
I mean, look, it's just a matter of poor timing, Dragon.
Absolutely. So that's the thing. I love that in the relationship, Vanessa is accepting Fisk 100%. She accepts his world, which is something Fisk is kind of unprepared for. It's like he knows that, Vanessa accepts him, and they have a very honest and open relationship. But still, it's like the fact that she has a bit of a bloodlust there. And that kind of takes, I would wager that takes him off his guard a little bit, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and what's so fascinating about this too is that he's basically doubling down the truth aspect of the relationship, fully, having her fully in the world 100%. In a way, Fisk becomes even stronger than he already was. I mean, we've seen him at his strongest, but as we saw with the whole Karen Page affair, really killing a man via jacket, death by jacket. The emotional kryptonite of the Kingpin is still there, but in this episode, one could argue he evolves from the emotional handicap. Where again, if Vanessa is fully in the light, that he doesn't have to worry about the separation of Church and Vanessa. He's even more powerful than he's ever been, which builds up the monolithic thing that Daredevil is going to have to go up against in the next episode. His love for Vanessa versus versus the Devil of Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah, yeah. Very interesting stuff, to be sure.
And again, I do think there's that minor personal sadness, though, which I think we're going to explore a little bit more in the next episode.
So sad, Vanessa.
I mean, seriously, you saw that on D'Onofrio's
Give me an inside-out tissue. I'm sorry. Yes, seriously, I do see it. It's D'Onofrio is like a crushed schoolboy this episode, Dragon. He might as well be wearing like a sailor suit and holding a lollipop with a tear running down his cheek.
Exactly, but yeah, that's the thing. I love just all the minute things D'Onofrio is doing in this performance this episode, with like how he just perceives. Oh, he's very much on Vanessa's level. He's very receptive, and then towards the end there, where she says, I want to be in your life, fully in your life, and you see the sadness where he's a little. Again, I think hopefully we're going to explore this more in the next episode. As I remember, we did, but again, we'll see if it holds up on the rewatch, that aspect of it. But I love that he's crestfallen. He's taken he wanted to keep Vanessa pure in like this one aspect that he just views so pure in his life, that maybe I'm not totally a monster if she can love me, that she's kind of a monster too. And that kind of like, again, the way that Matt's hope is crushed in a smaller sense, in a growing sense for the next episode, Fisk's hope is also dashed in this episode in a smaller, in a growing sense.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm sorry, one last thing with this is really important though, is that Vanessa at the end of the episode, and with the whole arc of the Kingpin here, so Fisk lets her in, and Vanessa makes a call that Fisk wouldn't necessarily make. She elects for a full measure versus Kingpin's half measure, which I think is a fascinating idea.
Yeah, totally.
He didn't want to kill Nadeem. He wanted to just have him go on trial for the murder of the agent, which we have the dirt on him with. Let's just have him go on trial. And she says, "Well, he separates us from our happiness. Let's kill him." And that's a big moment, It's
what it is? It's like in some ways Vanessa has less humanity than Fisk in that moment,
which is so. Oh my god! It's just so. I love it. I love it so much. I mean, in a sense, you could look at their relationship, this new power dynamic, as it's her recommendation is take what you want. You wanted me. You have me. If you want to secure that, you don't. Go full measure with it. Versus the control tag. Fisk likes to exercise control. She just wants to exercise power, and it's really fascinating. Again, it's just a really excellent arc for the Kingdom episode. All right. Speaking of Nadeem.
Nadeem! It's the last time we'll get to joke about that, Dragon.
Nadeem!
Nadeem!
Of course, in essence, if you think about it, because they didn't want to kill Nadeem, because if you want to get all silly with it, he had that moment with Nadeem where Nadeem, we were both in the thick of it together. No, that wasn't part of the plan.
Right, for sure.
The whole Nadeem! Vanessa!
Folks, Nadeem has definitely become, I would say, as much as season 2 was the whole splish splash in the blood, Matthew. This season is Nadeem.
Nadeem's the breakout star. Nadeem's the new Elektra. It's the idea of again, of course, also with our other running gag of Fisk being very tied into relationships and just kind of the fandom of the Daredevil show. It's just saying, God. Vanessa, honey, I love you, but do we have to kill Nadeem? I forged such a bond with Special Agent Nadeem, and he.
Well, no. It would have to be that he would have to be invested in Nadeem's. I'm really rooting for Nadeem's family to work out. I mean, he and Seema have their problems, but they seem like a happy couple underneath it all.
I think they'll meet. I think they'll make sweeps week. I do. Vanessa, not so much, and I think that shows at the end of the day. Maybe we shouldn't give her the Nielsen rating. Anyway.
Oh, man.
Off the Nielsen talk, let's talk about Nadeem. So, Nadeem starts off.
Yeah, oh my god, all that time we haven't even talked about Nadeem. Sure. Of course, Nadeem is our guy. You know, he is the one who is going to testify. He is the one that needs to redeem his name, that has everything to lose. He's going to strike whatever deal he can to get Fisk sent away. And, you know, Nadeem is definitely like I mean, here we go again, Dragon. Here we go
The
again with the
exceptional Madani.
yeah, right? I mean, it's just like I don't even know how they did it, Dragon. I mean, I like Ray Nadeem might be the best original character in any comic book adaptation.
It's very fair because even Claire Temple, again, you can't say that because Claire's a pache. She's the Claire Temple character in Night Nurse, rolled in the ones. She's not an original character. Have to be Nadeem.
Right. So, I mean, man, I'm just kind of glowing about how good his arc is. It's just like, you know, from going in episode 1 to being like the guy who's hesitantly striking the deal with Fisk to all the way through until this final moment, his final sacrifice. It's man, it's just super compelling stuff. I mean,
I said it earlier, and again, as much as we like to kind of make the exceptional Madani comparison, I mean, in all seriousness, though, he is really the Ben Urich of the season. He is, in a way, we kind of got Ben Urich back, and that he's kind of our other storyline. We're very compelled, and he's not just there to kind of fill time. He's there, and we care about him. Of course, he meets a terrible fate at the hand of the Kingpin, very similarly. So that's the thing. He's paying a penance this episode for said deal. He loses his family and his freedom, but he faces the harsh truth about his actions and his culpability and things. But importantly, he takes responsibility. I think that's the big thing. He takes responsibility for his actions, and at the end of the day, he's a good man, doing the right thing. Has a noble final action.
mm-hmm.
Of course, he records that message for his family, which will kind of save the day at the end of the
kind of like the anti Walter White.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah.
He broke good.
Yeah, and of course, it's kind of he accepts his fate in order to protect his family. I love how accepting he is at the end, just having a beer and just waiting for essentially the Grim Reaper to show up. That's kind of what he is at the end of the day, in order because he knows it's going to protect his family. Because if he lives, his family's in danger. If he dies, though, they'll be protected. And it's kind of. It's kind of interesting. Even if he won't live to see him, he wants to ensure that, and he knows he has one last shot to get Fisk, and of course that's kind of what he does with that message. And of course, the whole of the episode of what he's doing, of course, is the one last shot. But again, I love how we interpret the one last shot in a few ways, not in a way that connects to every single character, aside from the whole like it's Nelson Murdoch's last shot, versus that whole thing. But again, kind of the sense of like this is his last shot of redemption and getting Fisk. And closing the loop that he unwittingly started. It's a very full circle thing where he started all this, and of course he is kind of the ending of all of it with everything that he's done in kind of connection to Fisk. Like, well, his fate doesn't happen without him kind of taking those first steps. He puts everything into place. It's kind of fitting that he passes, well, that he gets killed.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's sad. I mean, again, it's so sad. This is the last time we can. Well, we're going to be able to talk about him for a spell, I guess. In the last one, this is the real last time we're going to talk about Nadeem doing stuff.
Yeah, and again, Dragon, I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but I just can't emphasize how challenging it is from a writing perspective to insert an original character into a universe that's filled to the brim with already established characters with backstories and history. And Dragon, I would argue that Nadeem's arc might be the most compelling of the season. I think I could make an argument for that.
Let's talk about the flip side of that coin. Let's talk about the other really compelling, one of the rivals for the Nadeem arc.
I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, it's him, Dex, and then I would say maybe Fisk.
Well, Fisk is kind of the omnipresent one, but in terms of our new guys, it's these.
Oh, of our new guys, yeah, certainly. It's like, yeah, they're kind of rivaling each other for sure.
Let's talk about appropriately.
Dex. We need to talk about Dex. All right.
Tiki, wait, Tiki. I'm sorry, I just need to acknowledge it, Tiki. We need to talk about Dex.
Oh. Yes, right. We need to talk about Dex. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm missing something.
No, I thought we said we were just going to say it with gravitas, but anyway, let's just move on to Dex.
Okay, sorry. All All right, so at the start of this episode, man, he is losing his shit.
That he is, and we got a taste of it last episode.
Let me lay some stuff out for you, Dragon. Basically, what I love so much about Dex in this episode is that essentially he doesn't have a ton of screen time. He really doesn't. But from what we know about him as a character, we can kind of put the pieces together and figure out exactly what would be going through his head in this situation and why it would just drive him insane. And Dragon, of course, one of the big things about that is that we have, we have Fisk is, Vanessa's in the room, Dragon. Vanessa's in the room. Vanessa has entered the building. Very important stuff. And Dex, man, he's getting a little too comfortable. He's calling himself the new Wesley. He's perhaps securing paintings by means in which he shouldn't be. And he's getting comfortable, but by the same extent, the only reason he tries to be comfortable is because he knows he messed up. He knows that, he's just like trying to be like, yeah, it's all good, right? I'm your new Wesley, bro. And Fisk, of course, it's just terrible timing all around, Dragon, because no, Fisk is not cool with Karen Page not being dead. That is not okay. And B, you embarrassed me in front of her! It's just that simple, Dragon. I'm honestly surprised Fisk didn't kill him right then and there.
This is a fascinating thing. Of course, as I heralded the previous episodes for, what I love, especially in episode 11, one of the really great things with Dex in the whole season is that, of course, one of the most definitive qualities of Bullseye when he's done right. Even in the Affleck Daredevil, we kind of had this a little bit, but it's even better traditionally. Bullseye can't stand missing. He can't. And of course, with the greats, we have so much great character in the bank in this season where we established why it bothers him. So we had the audience to know why it bothers him, and now we say, okay, he's let down his North Star in Fisk, and we just take the traditional Bullseye can't stand missing, and he's missed in both senses of the word. He hasn't killed Karen Page, and he literally missed the shot too. It hit Father Lantom instead of Karen. So he's out of his gourd, just self-conscious, like, oh God, I've missed, and after everything, of course, he's now gone. This is like the follow-up where he's been trying to avoid Fisk like the plague and telling him the bad news. And now he has to face Fisk. He has to go back there, and he desperately wants to redeem himself in the eyes of his mentor. And again, his timing is terrible, and I love it. It's a big moment. Again, you and I and all the especially the Fisk fans out there, so like, oh, guys, literally, as Vanessa has just shown up in the season. She's going into the place, and it's just like, not now. And he's just really stern with him. And I love how this plays on both levels, where we know the danger that he's in if he crosses Fisk like that.
Oh, yeah.
Dex is playing with fire majorly in this episode. And on the flip side, for Dex, you're knowing this character is like, oh, God, like him being told that not now, the first really harsh word that Fisk has for him the whole season. On Dex's psyche, he desperately wants to be loved and liked by Fisk and get a pat on the head. It's like murder for him. It's like someone's like driving a screwdriver in his head or something. Like it's like he's coming unraveled. And I love the little touches too, where the fact he brings him lunch again, just like how he first met Fisk. He's trying to ingratiate himself in so many subtle ways. He's trying to, in essence, he's trying to manipulate Fisk into forgiving him.
Right.
And then we have of course the painting gesture to become he's trying to manipulate in a few ways, trying to ingratiate himself to Vanessa, which he knows the way to Fisk is through Vanessa, and again the whole Wesley thing, which is kind of Fisk laying out his own undoing by mentioning Wesley to Dex, and Dex wanting to become the son-like figure to him in the form of Wesley. He's stepping on all sorts of toes here, and he's just in essence, by the end of the episode, Dex does achieve his goal in that, through, in a way, again, if you look at Wesley, again, I've always looked at Wesley as kind of like the brother figure to the king, but again, a brother relationship's kind of evolved to a son relationship, but by all means, fine. He was just really close to him, and Fisk didn't really know how close he was till he was gone, being the operative idea, I guess. If you want to look at it as Fisk and Vanessa kind of having their house in order, kind of being reunited by the end of this episode, kind of the dark love child, if you will, in the form of Dex, who now has a bond to both of them. He's met Vanessa, and of course, he achieves his goal in that he's in good graces with Fisk. He's still viewing himself as the Wesley figure, and he's serving the Kingpin unaware of the manipulation that he's been manipulated by Fisk this whole time. So he's happy as a clam, like he believes in me again. I get to kill people with great accuracy.
He's proud of his boy.
Absolutely, he's proud of his boy. Anyway.
Oh boy! All right.
He's proud of Bullseye. Another week.
That was a stretch, Dragon. Okay.
Anyway, so the point is Dex is driven crazy until he was kind of pacified. That's kind of Dex's arc in a nutshell. Let's move on to our next dazzling segment.
Oh, sorry. You weren't supposed to see that. All right. Daring Dynamics.
Yes. Let's start with Matt and Nadeem.
Oh boy.
This is a tragedy.
Yeah, these two really, it's very interesting that these two don't even have any sort of interaction with each other until the second half of the season, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, because the idea is that he was looking for Matt Murdock, and he doesn't see Matt until he was supposed to meet Matt in episode 6, but that went belly up, so he doesn't see Matt until honestly,
I want to say episode 8.
Remember, he doesn't meet Matt Murdock. He meets Daredevil. If you want to be technical, he meets Daredevil at the end of episode. He's just. I think
7 and 8 are blending together for me for some reason.
Right. Because it has to be 7 because he establishes the frame up, and they go into Dex's apartment together in 8. So yeah, it's 7. End of 7. He meets Daredevil at the end of 7. Then he reveals in episode 11 that he's Matt Murdock. So that's when he meets Matt Murdock.
All right. So my point being is that throughout just basically one episode, we established that Matt Murdock and Ray Nadeem are just very much kindred spirits. You know what I mean? It's like they have such a close dynamic with each other in terms of just knowing to do the right thing, and they work really well together in combat. And I don't know, Dragon, it's like, this is going to sound silly, but it's a little bit of a bromance, but in the most serious of ways, you know what I mean? And the most I love how Matt is like fighting for Nadeem to get off. He's like, no jail time. Like Foggy's like, partner, any other lawyers that would have done that, he would have gotten a lot more, which is true, Drake. And honestly, I think all things considered, 5 years is pretty lenient.
It is, because if I'm right, it means on all counts, which means basically it's not just like every single count he's going to get 5 years. It means that altogether on all of the counts, it's just 5 years.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. So Matt, of course, I love this. I love the dynamic. There is a little bit of friction there, which basically they've already worked through the friction in the other episodes when he was Daredevil. And of course, now down there, like the full trust has been extended, and he sees that he's in his corner. Because remember, Matt, he secures his family, takes care of his family via Brett Mahoney's mother. Brett Mahoney's mom saved the day, and I love that. We paid off the cigar gag.
Yeah, that was great. That was a great little callback right there.
So Matt, I do love that he unloads. He's not being malicious here. It's just I think he is. It's kind of a thing here where Matt unloads a bit on Nadeem when he basically does the thing in cross-examination. The other lawyers can be really harsh on you. Basically, they kind of like say, "Well, why didn't you do that, Nadeem? Why were you aided other murders?" He basically says all the terrible stuff by you helped Fisk. You kept him in a 5-star hotel. All that sort of stuff. We're basically just unloading on me to the point where Nadeem says, I did it because, my stupid pride. He basically says that was my fault, kind of copping to the responsibility. He's doing all of that, being a good lawyer. And in essence, he's protecting him as much as he can, not only as a hero, as we see in kind of one of my favorite sequences of the episode, but also as a lawyer. He's vehemently, very fervently defending his client. And yes, that whole 5 years thing, he's willing to let Blake Tower walk out the door. He is. And
which is frankly pretty bold on his part.
It is, but that's Matt Murdock for you. But I tell you, Tika, the thing again, I swear, I'm not just trying to be cheeky with this here, but I swear to you, I've been noticing it on the rewatch because again, that's how we've been experiencing these things. But as we had this, I forgot how clear a parallel it was and how well articulated it was. But I think the reason Nadeem and Matt work so well is because we built this theme into the bank where Nadeem, and I have proof pudding in this episode, Teague. I learned that I'm not crazy, is that there is a Jack Murdock parallel with Nadeem because we do it in this episode.
Is there?
Yeah, remember, Nadeem calls his family telling them that he did the right thing and he hopes to set an example for Sammy. on the exact same phone that Jack Murdoch made the call from in Fogwell's gym, the very night that he was about to that he was about to win the fight. Remember?
Wow. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
on
yeah.
the same phone, and
Uh,
it's like they flipped the shot around, but it's the same thing. And Matt overhears this, and this is a runner up for my blinding moment, by the way, when this happened, where Matt overhears this, and again he's touched by this, and I just love that. That's what strengthens the bond even more. Where Matt, and this is before they do the convoy thing, where
so what I'm saying, like, Matt is like just kind of like silently gaining so much respect for Nadeem throughout the episode.
and that's the thing, like Matt in this episode, he comes to realize the parallel to his father, which again was so well built into the season to the point where he had the ghost of Jack Murdoch and Matt's mind, that whole thing. And that's the thing, like it was well earned.
I
And
like
well
to imagine that Jack Murdoch and Wilson Fisk are like buddies and like in the inside out subconscious of Matt Murdoch's head.
Well, that's the thing. Of course, the ghost versions of them certainly, yeah.
Like, in reality, they would certainly be on opposing sides, but just like I said, Dragon, just think of it as like they're basically like the inside out emotions, or like they're like the imaginary friends of Matt Murdoch's head.
Yeah, true. But by the same token, again, the creepy thing that we unearthed on rewatch is that Matt killed hallucinated Fisk.
Oh God, you're right. Oh Jesus Christ!
And we don't see him again.
Oh shit! Fair enough.
Gotta be pretty lonely up there. I mean, okay, I'm gonna throw this at you because we haven't made this reference at all since I want to say the first episode.
All right.
Again, I mean, we haven't quite seen it, but I mean, assuming he'd be kind of reflecting and having flashbacks. I mean, assuming the flashbacks weren't going to go for anything. I mean, Jack Murdoch might be able to beat the hallucinated Elektra.
Oh, hello, Jack. You're much sexier than your son.
Okay, I wouldn't go that far with it, but sure. But seriously, like, that's where we can get away with like kind of our fun, playful version of Elektra.
Right. Just like, Jack, would you like to roll around in these puddles and puddles of blood with me?
Imagining Elektra with like just kind of being playful, like, oh look at me, I have boxing gloves. Jack, box with me. Teach me how to box. I won't hurt you like Natasha Romanoff.
Oh my God! All right, that's great. All right.
Okay. Anyway, sir.
And scene.
Okay, circling back here, no, in all seriousness, but that's the thing. But seriously, back to with the Jack Murdoch parallel, I thought that was so touching. That's him kind of seeing seeing that call play out here. He earns that much more respect for him, and Matt is really, and because of him kind of unearthing that connection, not just purely the Jack Murdoch, but kind of realize this is a good man who's doing right by his family, and basically what Matt learns about himself, he learns why his father, he regains respect for his father via Nadeem, where again he was questioning this season during that whole dream episode, during the whole hallucination conversation with Jack Murray. He was calling his father on the harsh truth, like, no, you let your son die you let yourself die and your son grow up alone because of your pride. Where he basically is re-educated, like, no, this is why your father was setting an example, the same way this man's like throwing away life and limb in order to protect his family. So he kind of regained respect for his father and kind of re-established his identity through Nadeem. So in a sense, Nadeem is very pivotal to the season, even more so than he already was, in a sense here. And again, because of all of this, Matt is really affected by his death. And again, I think if Matt wasn't already kind of leaning towards that direction, Nadeem's death after the bond that he forged with him is what definitely kind of like charges, like, okay, I'm going to kill Fisk because of this. In a way, because of what Fisk has done here, he loses his father again, in a sense. And I think that really hurts Matt because all of this because the dynamic was so strong,
Yeah.
Another defining death, and it's also one last thing. He said it's yet another defining death for Nelson and Murdoch as a firm because it's like the second major death they've had since Miss Cardenas in season 1, where it's a client that they helped out, and who was kind of murdered by Fisk.
Yeah, for sure.
I bring that up.
I'm just kind of dancing around the death because I don't want to get too much into the dynamics. So I'm sorry.
Well, I bring that up specifically because if you'll remember, Miss Cardenas, when she died, that's when Matt was contemplating killing Fisk for the first time.
Oh, that is a good parallel.
That's what I'm saying. Literally, when Cardenas was killed to lure Daredevil to the trap, it's like that was when we had, again, if you want to get really connective here with the whole one last shot title of it all. Remember when he faced the Kingpin after that whole thing? I'm going to kill you. Take your shot. And of course, the reversal at the end of the season. So again, the whole shot parallel there. Anyway.
Sure.
Okay.
Alrighty then, let's move on to Foggy and Tower.
Foggy and Tower. Okay.
Foggy Towers, the new hilarious sitcom.
They moved into a building together. The Blake Towers. Blake Towers gotten out of the political game. Now he's running
Oh,
a
God.
hotel, but shenanigans ensue when his old pal Foggy Nelson is the co-manager.
Foggy wakes up the whole hotel every morning with a foghorn.
Like Cheers in a hotel.
Anyway. All right. Anyways, man.
Anyway, so no, in all seriousness, so Foggy, of course, they've had a really interesting dynamic this season in running against each other for DA.
Yeah, and I like how throughout coming out the other side of it, they kind of have this weird mutual respect for one another while still being a little bit cantankerous with each other.
The way it's always been with them is that again these are two regular guys who are just good lawyers who they mean well, but they've always kind of faced this.
It's kind of like how the lawyers interact with each other in Better Call Saul.
To an extent, pretty much. Let me put it this way, okay? If Foggy is Jimmy McGill, for example, then Tower is Schweikert from Schweikert and Cokewood.
Yeah. That's a good, for sure. That's a good parallel.
Especially in season 1, where Schweikert isn't a bad
like a
guy,
different law firm, but still the same practice.
That's what I'm saying. Like Schweiker in Better Call Saul, and especially in the first season, again, he was up against him. Doesn't matter. He doesn't dislike Jimmy. He's a bit of a class. He's a bit of a law firm snob, but he's not a bad guy. And that's kind of Tower.
right. Sure.
Tower again, he's thinking politically, where Foggy is not thinking politically. That's the difference. Where Tower does have to factor in the whole if I want to be DA, I want to do these things. And you can't hate a guy entirely for just wanting a political career, but against politics, it's a dirty thing. So sometimes there's a gray area, suffice it to say. And anyway, so the point being, Foggy and Tower in this case, they relate to each other non-politically versus what the whole season's been about here, where they've been very much like you're protecting Fisk, and again, Tower is kind of protecting Fisk, but by the same token, he just doesn't want to stir the pot. He doesn't want to get in trouble. It's like, you know what? Fisk won. I'm not gonna look into things. I'm not gonna try and do the work on paper. That's quite simple. It's kind of a Hamlin-esque way of looking at things. It's like I just want to keep things spinning.
Sure.
And the thing that they end in this episode, they get on the same page as lawyers, where it's like, of course, you got to remember lawyers fundamentally. Again, I don't mean to keep going back to Better Call Saul here, but again, if we learn anything from Better Call Saul, lawyers, as in real life, they do feel the law is sacred. Even the most low rent lawyer, the most ambulance chasing lawyer, the law is sacred to an extent where you have to honor it. And again, your regular guy is like, I just want to do the right thing, I want to do right by my client here. In this case, we got to do the right thing to the point where Foggy's like he's going to throw away the entire election days. He'll even vote for him. I love that, by the way. Foggy's like, give me a few more minutes, I'll vote for you. I'll endorse you and I'll vote for you even. And he's serving basically serving his powers into the election. It's just I love Tower's side of things too. Tower's just completely overwhelmed by the situation once he hears everything from Nadeem. Like, oh my god, he's just admitted to being involved in all these.
In other words, Dragon. In other words, what was that?
Exactly, but I love that though. I love that Tower's just like, okay, look, I'm willing to kind of deal, guys, but this he's like he's complicit in all these murders. I was talking like conspiracy. This is worse than conspiracy. But he was there.
A priest died on this man's watch.
Exactly. It's like I can't sell that. What are you, nuts?
But he's lovely with Dragon. That's what I like. It's like we have kind of like this realistic political guy meeting the ideology of our heroes, and we kind of have something that meets right in the middle there.
Exactly, and again, he does. In essence, he kind of gets political redemption this time. Where again, even as politically minded as he is, it's the right thing to do to take down Fisk, which again is kind of been anti his platform this whole season, where he's been trying to fight against. And he's like, okay, look. I'll fight against Fisk if you give me something tangible like this. I will do that, as he's been willing to since the start. But again, probably didn't do it as fervently as he would because of the election. And also, what's one last thing I wanted to note here, unless you got anything else, is that
no, I'm good.
Is that Foggy? I love that when Foggy revealed that Fisk had something on it. Again, this is a storyline I was fearing like all throughout the season. Like, okay, we're gonna do something. We're gonna have that cringy scene where Foggy's gonna have to renege on his statements. And he's doing it for the greater good, of course, to protect his family. It's like, oh, Foggy, don't do that. But again, we're ushering it in nicely here, where Foggy is telling Tower what the situation is, and Tower respects that you're doing this, so you're ensuring there's no corruption in the DA's office. If Fisk won't have something on you if you do get elected.
You know what? That's a good point. I wasn't even thinking about that. Because you and I were kind of wondering how that subplot resolved itself, and you're right, they do solve it with like some really clever legal loopholes.
Yeah, and again, we're not doing the obvious things where Foggy's not kowtowing to Fisk. I know we're gonna have like a little bit like a PS with the next episode, but that's essentially what we're doing here. So this is pretty much it.
Uh-huh.
Okay, anyway, so that's all I really got on Foggy. There's point is like it's a nice dynamic, kind of like true blue lawyer dynamic, you know.
All right, so let's see. Karen and Ellison.
They're reunited.
Yeah, you know, they Karen Page. I couldn't stay mad at you for too long.
That's the thing. I love that. Like Karen is, it's basically exactly what Foggy said. Right? I mean, Ellison thinks of you as family. He'll forgive you instantly, especially if you give him the story. You know, if you tell him what's going on, I'm sure he'll forgive you. And that's the thing. Karen is Brad fan. Therefore, it's an instant forgiveness, especially after. I mean, one, Ellison's obviously cooled off after the big blow up that they had. I'm sure he's felt guilty about it. But of course, after learning everything that Karen's been through in the church and everything, the death of Father Lantham and how nearly she was been killed, it's easy. I just love how Ellison's the bigger man. Like, okay, look, forget all that. All right, he just hugs. The second he sees her, he hugs her. You know, it's like adorable. You know,
yeah, and that's the thing, Dragon. I really love how, you know, throughout season 3, all these different character arcs are being really tended to, and you know they've all had time to grow and develop, and that's one of the big strengths at play here. And I think Ellison and Karen is one of those like supporting dynamics that really adds levity to the season.
of course, Of course, now they're on the same page. No pun intended. They're they're using the press for the greater good, exposing Fisk's actions to the public. Of course, kind of goes a little belly up, but you know, it's Ellison doing the right thing. They're over Canisius too, by the way, which is kind of a nice touch.
Yeah,
It was kind of two Canisius. I mean, it looks like Ellison was going to eat both of those Canisius. I wonder if it was supposed to, like he was supposed to meet Karen there, but he didn't know it was Karen. I wonder if, yeah. Anyway, so aside from the whole, is Ellison a two Canisius kind of guy? Let's move on. Apparently, in the MCU,
Dragon, I'm sure that's the conversation that all our subscribers want us to have right now.
I watched a live stream of some really, you know, kind of regal people, let's say, and there was eating for the live stream because people requested it. Okay.
Fair enough.
Kid you not, but regardless, I will say one more thing that just in the greater season.
Why can't people pay us to have Sandy eat potato chips?
Anyway, okay, regardless, just one food connection I do want to make before we move on to the next dynamic here is, again, if it's about like kind of Marvel characters having two of everything, you know, two food items, it's going to be kind of two eaters. You have Ant-Man with the two tacos, and the Hulk and Ant-Man with the two tacos.
Oh my god, yeah. There we go.
Anyway, okay, moving on.
All right. Okay, big one. Dex and Nadeem. So good, Dragon. Just in one scene, it kind of solidifies everything.
Absolutely. This is the last Nadeem scene, folks. This is a big one.
Man, I am genuinely bummed about that, Dragon.
Well, again, we're going to get a little bit of
Again, I never thought that I'd care so much about like an original character in a comic book show.
So we have, think about this, Tiki. We have the two major touchstones of season 3 and the FBI within the season. They both started from the FBI and they both were manipulated by Fisk. And just look at how far they've came this season. This is the last scene that they share together. This is a really great.
First of all, I love the whole like I was hoping it would be you bit.
Mm-hmm.
That was great.
That's what I'm saying, Tiki. This scene is just so wonderfully symmetrical within the course of the season, how things play out here, where you know they both have been manipulated by Fisk from the start, and they both have kind of gone on these diverging paths. One, basically, they both have been in the same position. Only one was accepting of it, versus the other one's kind of like is dying to get out of that situation. Where you have the man, and of course it's even worse. Where you have the man who saved Nadeem, and who genuinely, in essence, he kind of cultivated a respect for it. In another, and it's so tragic. You know what's so tragic about it? So the bigger tragedy in this is that if if it was only Nadeem who was Dex's North Star, if Fisk didn't kind of like extend
Oh
himself
my
in that
god.
role, Nadeem could have been that North Star because we had Dex, a guy who's looking for friends, who's looking for connections, who's having trouble
Yeah,
socially
yeah,
and kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
like
yeah.
relating to people. Because again, like he and Nadeem, they had a starting place. They really could have kicked something off. And Nadeem did, presumably Nadeem again. I know it was kind of for at the end of it was kind of for an alternative thing, but I like to think that Nadeem had that going in the first place. Where again, he was going to get Nadeem put back on the FBI. Through the whole collection thing, getting the lawyer to get him back on the team.
Yeah, sure, sure.
And doing all of that again, like there's a respect that was cultivated between Dex and Nadeem. It's just soured so much. It's so tragic. They could have gone such the other way if Fisk didn't taint everything.
But that really just goes to show the influence of Fisk and how he's kind of like just the puppet master of all the proceedings here, and these two men are just left to kind of pick up the pieces and deal with it. It's like, shit, man, we've both been played, and we're kind of both at the end of the line here.
In essence, you have Dooley's boys, and here we have
Oh
Fisk's
no.
boys.
Dooley's boys, wow.
Anyway,
That's
so
deep cut.
of course, Nadeem in his final moments here, he makes a final plea for Dex to wake up. He's manipulating you, and I love the awesome thing about Nadeem. I'm going to tell you some more things about it as we go into some later categories here, but Nadeem goes out on his own terms, not Fisk's terms. Like he doesn't go inside the house because Dex says, "Okay, let's talk inside the house." Ray, he says, "Dex, don't insult my intelligence. I know it's going to happen."
Right.
Like, we both know it's going to.
Also, I have nice furniture in there, and I don't want to get blood on it.
Exactly. So, of course, Alexa just walking in the background and says, "Oh, I love this furniture."
Oh my god. If only it had Ray Nadim's blood all over it.
It's so pretty. I'm saying she wants the furniture
That's
with the
the
blood.
reason why Dex is trying to get him in there, is just to appease Electron.
Whereas Dex, since the suicide hotline didn't work out, and the FBI it's kind of a bust. Like the next job that Dex is going to go into is the furniture game, like the Goldbergs is going to be selling furniture,
Oh god.
like the used furniture from the people he's killed in their houses.
Oh, selling used furniture. That's something I know nothing about. Anyways.
They're from murder scenes. Anyway, so of course Dex then, importantly, Dex takes the one last shot.
Yes.
All right.
You know what it kind of reminds me of, Dragon?
What does it remind you of?
A little bit of a Mike Werner situation.
Yeah, a little bit.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Don't, it's not as effective as that, but it's still damn good.
Sure. All
right. Okay, so I guess that's it for dynamics, right?
Yes.
Right, awesome. Let me switch things over here. Right, let's get into the Dare to be Different. All right. Okay, so let's see. Well, like I said, Dragon, we get a lot of what we do with Dex is kind of like inferred from what we already know about him. And, so he doesn't really have a ton of screen time, but just the idea of him being shooed away from Vanessa, it's like we know what that means, both from Fisk's perspective and from Dex's perspective very clearly. And so I just think the writing on the characters is just ironclad this season, and this episode just shows that off flawlessly.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, so again, I like how one last shot it's kind of an compared to. I love the episode titles this season. All the episode titles have a great correlation with what happens in the episode. I know it's kind of a usual. You might say it's kind of a standard thing, but not every show does that. Again, Gotham being an example of a lot of times. Being a lot of times you have like a show where you have like we just have episodes that have nothing to do with things,
We're gonna name the episode Selena Kyle and have her in one scene.
Or hard, exactly, stuff like that.
Or we're gonna name the episode Arkham Asylum and only mention Arkham Asylum. Yay!
Exactly. So we have that's
Don't
the thing.
Even get me started on Harvey Dent.
So the point, you understand my point, right? So here, of course, the episodes have a great correlation, but here we kind of shook it.
To be fair, the Harvey Dent episode was like one of the only episodes that he actually got screen time in.
He only appears, and I want to say, in the grand total of the series, I'm being generous if I say 4 times.
God.
I know it's 3.
Man.
I know it's 3. I'm being generous if it's 4.
All right, fair enough. Anyway.
Okay, my point is
That's
that
sad statistic trick.
Okay, in all seriousness, what I'm getting at here is even with the great episodes we've had this season, I like how we kind of shaked it up. We kind of shook it up a little bit here. Where again, one last shot is kind of a symmetrical example here. Where again, we have hope and tragedy of like we have one last shot of like getting things things done justly, and of course the
Sure.
end where things are not done justly. And there are one now we go from Matt's one last shot to Daredevil's one last shot, as well as literally the one last shot to the head that Nadeem takes, and
Yeah,
Dex of
very,
course
very
delivers that.
symmetrical there.
Let's see.
The
Like
Troubled in Paradise stuff with Vanessa, probably not what we were expecting.
yeah.
We were expecting more of like a happy reunion, like a like for her to just fall into his arms.
Oh yeah. Let's see. Okay, so I love the direction and the payoff of again the whole that of the way we did the Fogwell's gym call, where again we fully hit the whole Jack Murdoch parallel with Nadeem and Matt hears it and all that sort of stuff. The main thing I will say I didn't already say is that I love how it frames Matt's mission for him as well. He's preventing this. His whole existence is about preventing this very thing of like someone trying to do the right thing so they won't die, so that call won't ever have to be made. That's what the whole mission's been about. So it kind of reframes not only Matt Murdock's mission of like why you have to be a good lawyer and kind of make sure this thing doesn't happen to this guy, that justice is done, as well as the Daredevil side of things with the dual identity. And it complements the season as a whole when you think about it. Again, like this is the moment where Matt kind of fully gets a scope of like, okay, since the resurrection of what we've been doing this whole season, like Matt is kind of fully back as to who he is with one major thing left.
Mm-hmm.
We wait till the last two episodes to reintroduce Vanessa. Gutsy play, and I'm appreciating it. It's very, very warranted the way they did it. I got a weird one here for you. This is
Okay.
definitely a dare to be. There's a daring dynamic. Darn it! It's something that would fit in the dare to be different. Okay, so with the religious correlation to the season, of course, mainly through Matt's stuff, there is a bit of a Hindu thing in this episode. I could
Oh
be I
man.
could be
Oh
reaching
jeez.
here. I could be reaching
All right.
here.
No. I'm very curious, Dragon. I'm very curious here. You
I
have
could
my
be
attention.
All right, so I could be reaching here, but I did some research into it to see how
Okay.
crazy I was. But of course, as I mentioned, we have a big religious context with Matt's whole the story of Job and everything Matt's been going through. Of course, religious character in Daredevil, but Nadeem is a Pakistani character.
Yeah.
He's Hindu.
Yeah.
And of course, Nadeem he takes a shot to the head, and the last shot of the episode is he has the blood the blood on his head. And I could be reaching here, but you could see it as the mark of enlightenment. There's a name for it, but it goes by a couple different names because there's men and women have a different name for it. But I think it's like the Indian marking on the forehead, the red marking. Sometimes like a painted mark, sometimes like it's a dot, but in this case, the painted
Culturally
mark.
insensitive people probably just call it the dot.
But you know what I mean. There's an actual.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
It starts with a T. It's like it has like a few different pronunciations on. The point being, essentially what it symbolizes, as far as I could find, it's the mark of enlightenment, and it goes with a prayer of good deeds. The good thoughts, good deeds thing. And that's the thing. It again complements the Hindu faith, and you can look at it as again Nadeem. He is enlightened by the end of the series, where again he's enlightened to what Fisk has been up to. He's enlightened with all this stuff, and of course he wants to go out on a good deed, doing the right thing. It's kind of the last actions of Nadeem. So one could say if they're going that route, I think it's warranted given just how well complemented it is with the story. So I could be completely reaching with that, but I'd like to think maybe it's intentional.
I mean, I gotta say, I like where your head's at, Draken. I don't know if that's the author's intent, but of course, we have author's intent versus death of the author, so you never know. This might be a case where it's kind of colliding with each other, but at any rate, interesting observation.
I mean, the logic I have is he could have shot him anywhere, but he shoots him in the forehead. It could have just been for a one last shot on Nadeem's face, or it could be for significance. I don't know.
Right.
I love all the little clever things like the convoy, the decoy with the convoy. Because they have the cop cars going one way, but they had putting Nadeem in a van, so no one be on to him.
Sure.
Let's see, just the logistics of everything here, and the whole we summon an emergency grand jury here, and we keep them for a couple hours, and that's how Fisk gets the tip off. Like that's really clever stuff you don't see every day. Symbolically, some symbolism here. Okay, Nadeem dies in the empty pool, the symbol of the benefits of corruption. The symbol of, remember at the very start of the season, he told his son wanted a pool, and he dug the pool.
Yeah.
And he dies in the pool, and of course he was able to do that because, as he mentions in this episode, he wanted to give his son a proper life. He didn't want his son to think his father's an average federal employee. He wanted to think he was someone exceptional, and therefore that pool is a symbol Nadim's kind of like ethical failures of the season. Therefore, he dies in that hole.
Oh man, that's deep.
Literally. Let's see. Got anything else where I can round out a few here?
I'm trying to think. I mean, honestly, the fact that they were able to essentially repeat the same storyline they did with the attack on the Bulletin and still make it super compelling is, I think, kind of a feat.
Sure.
And yeah, that's about all I got.
Of course, we have a non-cliche election plot. It has a very fulfilling ending, and of course, it's about like bigger forces are a place for dropping like the whole like who's going to win the election.
Sure.
Don't see that every day. The loneliness idea of Vanessa, which I'm sorry you already went. There's one kind of like the speech specifically about loneliness and like how we framed in dialogue. It's what I really love too. She's like speaking like I was all over the place, and even when I was away from you, even with you right here, I still feel lonely every time you say not in front of Vanessa. It makes me feel like it reminds me I'm not part of your world. Just excellent dialogue and the whole the complicity with Fisk and all that sort of stuff. All that's great. Big one here, the symbol of rabbit in a snowstorm. We got to talk about this. So there was blood on the frame.
Sure.
There's blood on the frame of rabbit in a snowstorm. So Dex, for the third time, Tiki, I swear to you, for the third time, we've recontextualized rabbit in a snowstorm.
Oh man.
First time you have Fisk's childhood, where it's the wall, where of course it's associated with a negative memory, the murder kind of Fisk's baptism by Hammer, if you will. Then we have, of course, it's recontextualized with Vanessa, and that the love he feels for Vanessa, whenever he looks at the painting, he's thinking about it in a positive light. And then we have it here where now Dex has restolen the painting against Fisk's wishes, and he's taken a symbol of love. He's tainted a symbol of love with violence again for Fisk. Where again, it's gone back to what it was originally. Vanessa's bloodlust is now kind of symbolized within the frame of this painting. Where she had a lust for blood, in that let's kill Nadeem. Let's not let's not worry about like keeping him alive.
No half measures, Wilson.
No half measures, Wilson. And it's also again it kind of taints the purity, the white purity that the Kingpin sees in Vanessa as well. So again, it's all very interesting. Speaking of the rabbit and snowstorm, the cufflinks too. I kind of wanted to call this out. I'm sorry, I'll save that for the next. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. I'll say the rail trail, but I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that should. Fisk's loyalty with Manning. Manning was cool this episode. Felix Manning. Remember, we had the scene where Manning was going to tender his resignation. He says, "No, you kept her safe when I couldn't."
That was good. Sure.
That was great.
In light of everything, Fisk is still keeping like a shred of his humanity intact.
Absolutely. Okay.
Right. Cool. Right. Blinded moment of awesome, Dragon. You start us off.
So I call it. I don't have a good name for it, but I think it's the best I come up with here. Matt and Nadeem.
I would call it the Gauntlet, Dragon. That's the word I would use. That
is fair, and I did think of that, but I felt the whole Kingpin the chess parallel. Basically, Matt and Nadeem running the Kingpin's gambit to the courthouse.
Fair enough.
Of course, when you think Gauntlet and Marvel, you kind of think of
right. I mean, they're both G's. They're both G words that end with T, so fair enough.
Whole Kingpin of it all.
I always think of Gauntlet as like a narrow row of challenges in a video game.
No, you're right. I'm saying you're using it in the correct sense of the word there.
Yeah.
Gauntlet's whenever you go through a bunch of obstacles to get from point A to point B.
Right.
And
that's exactly what they're doing, honestly.
I think you're fine. They're running the Kingpin's gauntlet or gambit, whatever your preference is. The fact is, like, when they go through all the cars and everything to get to the courthouse, basically the convoy
Data's just like judging us, Dragon. He's just like, well, I like Gambit. I'm with Blue Dragon 5 because I like chess. I'm Data.
Anyway.
Yes, I'm trying to make Data a running joke at this point.
Data, I cannot make bricks from clay.
All right.
Okay, in all seriousness, this seems so well choreographed. It brings us back to something that was really... It was such a beloved aspect of Daredevil as a series, where you had Matt Murdock in broad daylight doing really cool things. Like, this is where we get like the whole. Basically, this is, folks, the reason Blinding Moment of Awesome is is the way it is for our title cards, is for this sequence. So this had to make my blind man awesome.
Of course, of course.
Where it's just Matt Murdock being awesome as a blind man, and we made it even cooler than we usually do. We're okay. He has a buddy, he has a partner in this sequence in Nadeem. So one Matt, he's like, oh god, we're being surrounded by Kingpins, and we've fallen into a trap. Essentially, it's Matt Murdock in a war zone within Hell's Kitchen, where he has to navigate Nadeem through all of this. And we kind of have this set up and teased in the prison.
At the same time, Nadeem has to look like he's navigating him.
Exactly. It's just so well choreographed. And two, and it kind of occurred to me in the moment, Tiki, that we kind of set this up so perfectly in the prison. When Matt escapes the prison, it's a similar idea where he's guiding the guy to get from point A to point B.
Absolutely.
And anyway, so this is just great. It's great teamwork. Him telling him like when they basically have like basically they duck before the truck gets shot to heck, and he says like, "No, shoot there. I can't shoot blind. I can shoot there." He just points in.
Right.
They have all these really great action bits. And, like bits like what you've seen right before. He just like grabs a guy and just like flips on the car. It's just freaking awesome. It's just it's great. And again, just Matt him visually operating as the lawyer to get him from point A to point B. Get your client to the courthouse. And I'm sure every lawyer is like saying, "Yes, if only it were that cinematic." But Kim Wexler has to get like her client. They have like an emotional scene where she talks to her client. Hey, we got to get you to the courthouse.
Exactly.
Imagine if this happened though.
Oh God.
They hit him with some beats in this sequence. Hit him with a beat in this sequence, man.
Okay, so one of the beats I really like is we have the woman in the car who's just kind of casually listening to pop music, and then suddenly just Nadeem and Matt just crash into the car, break the windshield, and then kind of just like walk off like to fight some dudes. And what I love about this dragon is that like it's total Daredevil shenanigans, but from this person's perspective, it's like some shady like Reservoir Dog shit is going down.
That's the thing, and T, that's what I love about this. This takes it back to what I love about Daredevil in the first place. It takes it back to like the Stan Lee Kirby era of things. I know there's Bill Everett created. Like I know Jack Kirby did some Daredevil. I don't know if I'm sorry, I'm getting off track. You're pointing at the old Stan Lee days of Daredevil.
Yeah.
I just love it where you had like the lawyer. He operated more as a lawyer than he basically was a lawyer who by night jumped off rooftops as Daredevil. At its core, that's what I love about the character. Again, I love him as like kind of the lawyer in broad daylight doing these amazing things that people overlook. It's such an ingenious. This is where we hit upon the ingenious premise of Daredevil. Where again, I know people many a time go to the Frank Miller. He's dark and he's beating people up and he's a Catholic. And don't get me wrong, that's cool. But still, I love the cleverness of it all. We get a lot of that here and the action, so it all works out.
All right. Wait, did you talk about the bus?
No, hit him with the bus. Tell him with the bus.
Okay, so Matt just kind of climbs into the bus and he's just like, play along. And so Matt, as the person is, is the guy who's sent to kill him, is kind of like scaling around, Matt in the bus and just like, hello? What's going on?
Oh God, that's perfect. Yes. It's all wonderful. This is what I live for there.
And then, as the guy comes into the bus, Matt's just like, I don't know what's happening. And then Nadeem comes in for the surprise attack. Yeah.
It's just, again, I'd love that in this episode we do the full spectrum. Like, if it's the last episode in Nadeem's doing some awesome stuff, and he's doing the awesome thing with Matt Murdock. It's so freaking cool.
Yeah, really good stuff.
Okay.
Okay, my moment is like more of a cerebral moment, Dragon. It's
a great moment though. I love this moment too.
Yeah, sure. It's the ultimate kind of like, oh my God, like Kingpin. He is above the law. There's no stopping this. So essentially, Matt and Foggy and Nadeem are outside the courthouse after Nadeem gives his testimony. They're basically high-fiving each other. Nadeem, of course, being a little bit more solemn because he's being sent away, losing his freedom and all that.
But remember, the plan was they were going to get his family in there to see him before he goes to prison, though.
Yeah, sure. And he's happy he did the right thing and everything. So, it's coming up about as positively as it could be. But then Dragon, oh my God, this is one of the most terrifying moments of the season, I think.
And it's so ingenious, too. I love how smart it is, too.
So Matt is listening in on the courthouse, and we just hear some smarmy-ass guy just reading the personal addresses of all the
No,
jurors.
Tiki, he's not smarmy. Remember, he's terrified. He was forced to do this. He's not smarmy.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. I'm sorry.
We have the jury. I think he's either a juror or a foreman. He's one of the points we're listening to. We're over here in the jury right now, deliberating.
Yeah, and so the guy like is just like we kind of come in mid scene, where he's listing out the addresses, and we get the reactions from the fellow jurors where it's like, oh my god, that's my home address, and it's like it becomes very apparent very quickly what's going on, and I love the look on Charlie Cox's face, just like, oh my god, it's over, like game over, man, that's it, he's won at this point.
Before Nadim's death, that's his low point in the episode. Like, no, like,
absolutely,
literally, he's in the house of the system, and the system is failing him, and there's nothing he can do to stop it because he can't just burst in there. He can't tell anyone that the jury's been tampered.
He can't just like pull a Phoenix Wright and be like, objection.
Yeah, he can't. He can't tell.
That simple.
And he can't tell anyone that no, the jury's been tampered with. Because how do you know? Because again, he can't tell them.
Yeah. Exactly.
So ingenious that he could listen to the verdict. In all the years of Daredevil, I never considered he could overhear the verdict, and I feel so stupid for never putting that together.
Right.
Because it's so brilliant.
So yeah, and then of course, dragging a little pin on my moment is, it's tragic given Nadim's fate. But I do kind of like, this is like the last little bit of levity where Nadeem is like so shaken by what's gone on that he's actually throwing up.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I just think it's just a great, like, arguably, Dragon, it's maybe the scariest power move that Fisk ever plays.
Yeah, that's the thing. Fisk again. I just love Tiki, as I mentioned.
Because it's such a manipulation of like, I am going to get to the heart of the jury. I am going to get to the heart of the legal system. There's nothing like, there's nothing that's beyond me.
Remember, it's not just like one juror. Which honestly, one juror possibly could have done it too. I love the fact that he got to all the jury.
Yeah,
all 12 members. He had men stake out their houses in relatively short time. I'll mind you too. Remember, they have like less than 4 hours to do all this. But again, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. Amazing.
So yeah, that's definitely my blinding moment for sure. Alrighty, let's switch off to our penultimate installment, the Braille Trail.
Yes. Okay, so one right off the bat I want to hit because this is one I was thinking of earlier here. Omelet. We do the omelet.
Yes, the omelet, for sure.
Of course, we set up the omelet way back. Oh, it's such a great payoff, too, because we set up the omelet at the beginning of this season. Of course, is a huge callback to the omelets that he would make for himself that he then made for Vanessa. If you want to look at the egg as a symbol of Fisk, just kind of being the vulnerable egg that he is. I don't know.
Okay, one of my favorite callbacks of the whole season, if not the whole series, is Dex telling Nadeem, "I'm sorry, Ray. I'm sure that must have been really hard."
Yes!
That's so good.
Oh, so great. And that thing, I'm sorry, with the omelet too, I was getting that. So when we have just the omelet no, you're right there. But you have the omelet just being called back in general, and just the symbolism with the omelet is, as per usual. And of course, the fact that we had it in season 3, and of course, there's the fact that it was the sophistication of the Kingpin of like he can only make a prison omelet despite the power that he has within the prison. And now he gets out, and he makes now we have like the I don't know if I don't think it's Chopin, but I always kind of my shorthand for it's the Chopin music. The point being the classical music is playing like dun, 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 as he's making the omelet and taking his time with it, and he makes it for Vanessa. Makes it for Vanessa, and also this detail I just love because he's fully dressed here. It's not the morning. He's fully dressed. He's wearing Vanessa's cufflinks too. Again, we paid off the cufflinks, baby. We paid off the cufflinks.
God,
it's all like all of this simultaneously. It's all great. The symbol of Vanessa, all the symbols of Vanessa are in this episode, and I love it.
Okay, so Mahoney's mom finally comes back into play.
Absolutely. Okay, some stuff that's going to pay off. Nadeem's video for his family. That's also going to be kind of the key to everything. So Nadeem's video is going to be pivotal.
Sure.
Let's see. Bullseye's continually increasing unstable, and he thinks he's the new Wesley. Which we also had a bit where between Fisk and Vanessa, and I love this bit too, where Vanessa brings up that he said he's the new James Wesley. Should I take that? Is that the truth? And he says, "No, I'll take care of it." Of course, he's like, no, like Fisk draws on. There's no replacing Wesley. I mean, Manning technically is the replacement for Wesley, but even Manning is not. Is no Wesley. No one's ever going to replace Wesley, folks. Not in our hearts, not in the show.
Oh God, yeah.
Let's see. So Fisk, of course, he achieves his goal in reuniting with Vanessa in a view, and the ravenous snowstorms all comes up there. Bullseye murdered poor Mrs. Falb after everything that she went through. After that beautiful scene, again, I love the fact that Fisk was like, I didn't want that. That painting shouldn't be here. I love that he's acknowledging he could just take the credit for it, but he isn't. I just love that. Let's see. Foggy wants to reform Nelson and Murdoch. That's a big one.
Yeah, definitely. The seeds are being planted for how the season will eventually end, for sure.
The Jack Murdoch call being parallel to Fogwell's. I already mentioned the ad nauseam, but let's see. I'm sorry, because you already had that. They had some really excellent pools so far. I just want to see what we haven't said here. Foggy and Tower again. They've reached an agreement to back off the election, which ipso facto is honestly, in my opinion, is a better version of what happens in the comics. In the comics, the idea is it's just corruption that Foggy gets ousted from the thing where Tower was corrupt, therefore he won.
Really?
Yeah,
you're right. That does seem a little too a little anticlimactic compared to this.
Well, I mean, I'm sure it was dramatic. We're like, oh man, Foggy looks like he's gonna win. We love Foggy Nelson. And then Tower wins. Like, oh man, how did Tower win? You probably find out.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. But to have a satisfying conclusion to both the characters' arcs and to make Tower like a more three-dimensional character,
yeah, it's
I
not
think
just
this is the better version.
It's not like a blow to Foggy. It's more of like it's a greater kind of reasoning for it. That's the thing.
And Foggy never intended to win the election, anyways, and this is honestly probably the best case scenario.
It's all great, honestly. It really is.
Yeah.
Fisk is a little uneasy about Vanessa in his life fully, and of course, that's going to hope if my memory serves me, it's going to pay off in the next one.
Oh, big time! Yeah.
Matt is going with his plan to kill Fisk. That's a huge one. Let me see. Oh, by the way, with the omelets, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't mean to keep bringing up the omelet, but there's one other thing.
Oh God. Okay.
There is a food parallel in the MCU with the omelet. It's kind of the symbol of love in the MCU because you spoke of the Mount Rushmore earlier on. I'll remind you, Iron Man 2. I was gonna tell you over an omelet.
Oh dear God.
Tony Stark can't make an omelet as well as Wilson Fisk can.
No one can make an omelet as good as Wilson Fisk can when he has the proper ingredients.
He can build an arc reactor, but he can't make an omelet.
I mean, hey, we all have our talents, man.
That is true. Okay, I think that's that's all I got.
Okay, 1 sec. Let me just switch over here. Let's move on to the last section, Dragon. The Nelson and Murdoch verdict. What do you got?
All right.
Final thoughts.
The episode, I think this episode is a linchpin for the season. I know it's the penultimate episode, so maybe a linchpin. Let me put it this way: I think it's a linchpin specifically in the Nadeem story, in the bigger thing this season. So the big question of the season is, can we return to status? I mean, a big question of the season is, can we return to status quo without Matt compromising who he is, who he's been in our hearts for all the seasons up to this point? Like can we go back to the route things were and just have everything work out, happy by the end of the day? And again, this kind of plays into the Lantern philosophy of, again, tragedy before the happy ending, where again, it's going to be, you have to earn the happy ending. You have to earn it, one could say. And this episode, again, it's an optimistic tease at ending the season early when you really look at this episode, where it's like, hey, we got Fisk legally. Show's over.
Yeah, totally.
Like he just got finessed.
One could even imagine that the last episode would be like a Game of Thrones style, like aftermath of like 5 years later. Here's how the characters are getting along, and maybe like a vague threat of Bullseye or something.
Exactly. You can look at it like, hey, okay, we ended the season early. I mean, Fisk was reunited with Vanessa, and then she was taken away from, which is going to piss him off even more. And there we go. But before, and doing all this before again, it seems that we're going to do that before Kingpin, as he does, crushes all the hope in Daredevil's life, as he tends to do, which is just the
I mean,
enduring
that's
stuff.
just his hobby at this point.
It is, and literally in Born Again, that's his
Except
hobby
when it
too.
comes to Kingpin's, except when it comes to Matt's love life. You know, he doesn't want to interfere with that.
True, but again, I love it's also a big correlation to Born Again too, where again, like literally the Kingpin in that story, he as a hobby, literally as a hobby, he just wants to make Daredevil, he wants to ruin Daredevil's life. That's the crux of that book. He just wants, like, he doesn't have to ruin Daredevil, he just wants to make it even worse for him every issue.
Right.
That's the thing. So at the end of the day, this episode is about Matt having to make a choice, and I just want to kind of get this in here because I think it's kind of a big one here. So it's a question of. It's a question like, are we going to go the Job route of things? Is Matt going to go? Are we going the Job route with Matt, where it's more? Is he Job made to suffer, or is he given a choice to make for himself? Like, is Matt dealt another blow with Nadim's death and like the system failing him in this episode as yet another example of like God, God making you suffer? You know, you're just like you're the servant who's going to go through all this just to suffer at the end of the day, but you're doing it because it's the right thing to do, or are you going to? Or are you given or is Matt given the choice? We're thinking about it, Tiki. It would have been taken out of his hands if all the problems were solved this episode. He wouldn't have to face the big choice he's been circling around for many episodes this season. Where again, am I going to kill the Kingpin or not? Am I going to kill him at the end of the day? And he still has to make that choice. And that's what this episode at the end of the day is kind of all about. Where you have, again, things aren't going to be easy until the end. 12 is about taking responsibility and the choices that will inform the paths for the finale. That's what this episode's all about. People making these choices. Like Foggy makes a tough choice. Matt is circling the tough choice, and of course Nadeem, in a bigger sense, the word is making a tough choice. And Fisk also. The episode is very much about choice and responsibility. And the episode has. I mean, stylistically, the episode has very inventive action. It's got compelling stakes. It's got excellent performances. Again, D'Onofrio being a standout. Everyone being a standout, honestly. It's just this is what reminds you that Daredevil, the Netflix Daredevil, is just excellent TV as a whole, and it really is. And this is like what I live for with this show. Episode 12 is so good.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. I think this episode is one of the best of the season for sure. It's got terrific acting, awesome action. It's got a lot of suspense throughout it, and more importantly, it's just got like freaking domestic shenanigans with Fisk and Vanessa. I mean, what more can you ask, Dragon?
Yeah.
Okay. So, so that's all for now. Until our next daring installment of Discerning Daredevil. Excelsior!
Enough said.
I'm proud of my boy.